the biggest game of the year today. This Saturday, Purdue takes on USC at Ross-Ade. I'm here with Locked On USC's host, Mark Kulkin. We're talking all about it.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And today is a very special crossover episode because Saturday at Ross-Ade, the Purdue Boilermakers take on the undefeated USC Trojans. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Football season's just around the corner. It's here. And if you visit the FanDuel app today, you can start planning your future bets now. Like I said, I'm joined by my friend and the host of Locked On USC, the guy, Mark Kulkin. How are you doing today, Mark? What are your thoughts on USC going into this big game week 3 at Ross-Ade?
Yeah, it's first road game of the year for USC, first conference game of the year. Two 2-0 teams going against each other, and we'll see who's the better unranked 2-0 team is when these guys kick off. What 4 days, 5 days?
Absolutely. When we're filming this, a little bit out, but still a lot to be excited about this weekend. And Mark, you kind of hit on it. I'm not a USC hater by any means. I know that this is a good team. This is an explosive offense, and it is a team that deserves the notoriety. And the AP poll comes out Monday when we're filming this, and USC doesn't get ranked. Mark, what do you think about that? Do you think that the offense and kind of the display that the Trojans have shown deserve to be ranked in that AP?
So if they do deserve to be ranked, I would definitely put them at the tail end, 25, 24, somewhere in that range. The polls should always be reflective on what you're doing that season. I don't think it should be predicated on what you've done the prior year. And that's how these preseason polls come out. So now all of a sudden, USC's got this, they've left a little bit of a stink in everybody's nose based on, going 8-5 and 7-6 in consecutive seasons. And then you open up your year up against Missouri State, and you drop 73 points on them. You follow it up with Georgia Southern, you drop another 59. But who are you impressing? So I don't know what the voters are looking for. Obviously they look real good on offense. Defensively, they're doing what they need to do to, get the win at the end of the day as well. Look, it is what it is. The polls tend to be political sometimes, a little biased. Maybe a win on the road is what everybody's waiting for. USC last year won one game out in conference on the road, and it really truly wasn't a road game. It was in LA. It was at the Rose Bowls against UCLA. So maybe this is just the last step before everybody's saying, all right, USC looks like USC again. Not only are they beating teams they should be, and no disrespect to Purdue, but the opening line is what, 28 points, 24, whatever.
21 and a half.
21 and a half. That's 3 touchdowns. So USC, I don't know, does USC have to win by 3+ touchdowns on the road to earn the respect that everybody anticipates them getting?
Yeah, and you said it. USC is a huge favorite going into Saturday's game, but Purdue has won the games that they needed to win. So not a knock at Purdue at all. The games are played for a reason, but when you look at what Purdue's done so far this year, they've won the games in the fashion that they need to win the games in. You win 31-0 in a shutout against Ball State week 1. That's not a great team by any stretch of the imagination. And then last Saturday, you have a little bit of a first quarter scare, 2 touchdowns given up, but overall it's solid and a resilient effort the rest of the way, winning 34-17 over the Southern Illinois Salukis. And USC, more of the same. You guys have won the games in the fashion that, honestly, that's all you can ask for when you put up 73 points against a team, although not that good, in Missouri State, and then you bounce back. I want to talk about this game Saturday night for USC. They play Georgia Southern at home, and I think that the big stat line that really pops out to me is Jaden Maiava. He throws for 412 yards in that game, and not just that, he has 4 touchdowns in that one. Tell me about Jaden Maiava. Do you think this is the next great Lincoln Riley product?
So the most important stat that you didn't even mention, yes, he put up a lot of yards. He got us the 4 touchdowns. That was the second game in a row where he did not throw an interception. And that's the key to Jaden Maiava. As long as he stays, and as he puts it, in his neutral mindset, He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. Each play is its own world, so to speak, and maintains that consistency that he's had so far. Game one, he played the first half. He was 15 for 18, 295 yards in the first half, a couple of touchdowns. He sits out the rest of the game. Last week, as you mentioned, he plays 3+ quarters, a little bit more than 3 quarters, 412 yards, 4 touchdowns, 67% completion rate. What he has right now is 2 really good wide receivers that if he puts the ball in their hands, hits them in their numbers, they're running with a lot of yards after the catch. And that's what happened this past weekend against Georgia Southern. He connected with Mekhi Lemon for 2 really long touchdown passes, and it was all yards after the catch. And he actually missed a third with Mekhi down the middle. It might have been his easiest throw, but sometimes you get a little bit too amped up, you get a little too much air into the ball, and those types of things happen. So 445 yards through the air, another 300 yards pounding it on the ground with the run game. So I don't know, Nick. I don't know what else USC has to do offensively to impress anybody. Everybody's looking for perfection right now. So I kind of been using my side eye trying to follow what Purdue's been doing. As you mentioned, they beat Ball State, and then they followed it up with a win against Southern Illinois. As you mentioned, they struggled a little bit out of the gate, but when you follow it up and you essentially shut the team out for the rest of the game, you're making the adjustments you need to. So now we'll see, what kind of challenges Purdue can present for USC and vice versa.
So I've been big about that challenge thing. I think that the biggest challenge for Purdue is going to be containing a guy in Jaden Maiava. We'll talk about kind of what USC needs to do here in our next segment, but we saw that Purdue did struggle against a dual threat guy in DJ Williams against Southern Illinois, especially early. His ability to kind of improvise and also be able to throw the ball down the field is something that Purdue didn't face up against in week one, and it's something that they're definitely going to see against Jaden Maiava. So from my perspective, that offense, that quarterback play for USC is the strongest part of y'all's team. From what I've seen, that offense is so explosive. It's honestly scary. But where is the spot on USC's roster? Where is the spot that you have seen that could be a bit of a weakness for USC so far?
So are we still on the offensive side of the ball, or are we just talking in general?
Either or, just in general.
I wouldn't say it right now, and I'm a little bit surprised, but again, I'm basing this on the competition that USC's played. Offensively, they've looked about as good as they can look. There's not a lot of meat on the bone to nitpick and say, well, they need to do that a little bit better. I mean, they've gotten the running game going. They've got the passing game going. They even have the tight ends involved. So now you've got all 3 facets of Lincoln Riley's offense working in concert. That wasn't happening last year. The tight ends were non-existent. They were used for blocking. Now they're actually being used for blocking in the passing game. To your question, where can USC show a little bit of concern? Where could Purdue attack them? I know you're real big on your running back. Right now, USC, they're rotating a lot of guys on their defensive line, so I'm not sure how much that's contributing to it. But they have shown that they can get hit up the middle depending on the personnel package that's in play. So right now, that's really it. They've gotten burned a couple of times with a couple of miscommunications in the secondary. But again, you look at the scoreboard and you wouldn't be able to tell. So there are areas where USC needs to kind of tighten things up. I would say it would be making sure the run game fits are stronger, and then just work on communicating better in the secondary, especially late in the game. So those are the things that I guess Purdue's going to be looking to exploit.
Devin Mockobee is going to be huge Saturday at Ross-Ade against USC. We're going to talk about keys that may be able to keep Purdue in this game. We'll talk where USC wants to come in and find success. We'll have that here for you next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's just not about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. Honestly, the biggest moments from last week's game was all Devin Mockobee. He really asserted himself in the run game early, running for over 120 yards and 2 touchdowns in that one. Devin Mockobee got it done. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. In our last segment, we talked about where these two teams stand. 2-0, both these teams going into Ross-Ade Saturday. Undefeated, that one is a 3:30 Eastern slot. It's going to be very exciting. Purdue is a big underdog, 21.5-point dogs with our friends at FanDuel. So, like I said, big underdogs in this game, but there is a scenario where Purdue keeps this game competitive and they look for an upset. It's going to be tough. USC's offense is explosive, but let's talk about some keys, Mark. Let's talk about some keys first with USC. Then I'll bring up some things that Purdue can do to stay in this game and to find some success. So, Mark, USC, they're going to want to get out ahead early. They're going to want to score points. They're going to want Jaden Maiava to take control of that game, get that lead, and hold on to it. Where can USC find success? How can they do that? And how can they find that victory Saturday at Ross-Ade?
As I mentioned in the previous segment, as long as Jaden Maiava is playing within himself, under control, not forcing bad decisions, he just needs to let his skill players do the work for him. Put the ball in the numbers with his wide receivers. He's got a running back room that I think is severely underrated. Waymon Jordan, he's a dude. He's one of those guys that you feel it when you have to tackle him. He's just one big muscle. He's not the biggest guy. He's shifty. He's got great feet. He has a jump cut that leaves people just grabbing at air, and next thing you know, he's 5 yards past you down the field. You have Eli Sanders, who is another running back who not only can who can hit it outside, but he can run between the tackles. He's an excellent receiver coming out of the backfield. And as I mentioned, the tight ends are full go right now. But I guess what Purdue has to be really wary of, can they contain both wide receivers, Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane? Makai is just the guy you throw. If the ball's in his vicinity, he's going to catch it. He's going to make something happen. He's USC's return guy. Jacoby Lane, you put it just in the zip code, you could have a guy hanging on one arm. He will still jump with one hand, and he'll bring it down for a touchdown. So if Purdue cannot slow down USC's offense, I think that's going to be the key to the game. That's going to be, as you mentioned, USC is explosive. They have a bunch of splash plays right now. I think they lead the country with, plays that contain 40, 50, 60, 70 yards plus. If Purdue cannot keep up with that, if they can't slow down USC's offense, that's what it's going to come down to. I think defensively, both teams are probably, equal. It's can Purdue keep up offensively?
That's something that does scare me from a Purdue perspective. Just watching USC, the offense for USC this year is even better than I expected kind of going into this year. So for Purdue, I'm not confident in the defense's ability to stop Jaden Maiava. I'm not confident in their ability to limit those big receivers because, like I said, they found some early they got themselves in a hole early against SIU. And when you look at USC's offense, that's going to be even better. So if you have a guy in DJ Williams, SIU's quarterback, stretching out the field the way that he was able to do, it gives me some concerns for where Purdue's going to be with those defensive backs against Jaden Maiava. So my point is, Purdue's best defense is going to be an offense that plays smart and wins the time of possession. I think that the only way that Purdue is going to be able to upset USC in this one is if they do two things. And even if they do these two things, I don't know if that necessarily guarantees that they'll be able to win this game, but they will certainly be competitive. The two things: win the time of possession. You need to assert the run game early. Keep USC's offense off of the field as long as you possibly can, because when they're on the field, they're going to strike, and they're going to strike fast. They score points in a hurry, and you can't allow them to do that. So with Devin Mockobee, you have to assert that run early, win the time of possession. That's going to be key number one. And then key number two, winning the turnover battle. We saw that Purdue and USC, for that matter, have been very disciplined so far. Purdue only had like 3 penalties week one, I think 2 last week, and then
You're talking about Purdue?
Yeah.
Purdue. Okay, good. Yeah, because USC's been a little bit sloppy on the penalties last game.
Well, but I know that Jaden Maiava, he hasn't thrown an interception yet. So from that perspective, has been a disciplined football team. Ryan Brown, no interceptions week one, only throws one. That was pretty rough, but overall, he's been making high IQ throws. So those are the two keys. You have to win the time of possession, keep USC's offense off of the field, and then win that turnover battle. From a USC perspective, where do you think they stand? I know that you talk about that penalty kind of margin that has been a little bit sketchy at times, have done a good job not turning the ball over. Do you think that USC will be able to play high IQ football enough in order to kind of take what Purdue wants to do, disrupt that, and really stay in a how do I phrase this? Stay in a dominant fashion where they don't have to worry about turnovers. They have a big enough margin of error where they're able to win that game.
Yeah, I'm sure the coaches know that, stop the run first, make Purdue beat them through the air. That's going to be the key. Make them one-dimensional. And I understand your point. Win the time of possession battle. It can't, for Purdue. They can't end those. They can't have long drives of 60, 70, 75 yards and have them end in field goals. I think that's the key. Purdue has to score touchdowns. USC, they might sometimes, it kind of looks like a little bit of a bend don't break type of defense. But once you get into that, once the field kind of shortens up a little bit, that's when they tighten things up. If you're not beating USC with, maybe a defensive breakdown, which USC has shown, teams are generally, well, at least in these first two games, they have to settle for a field goal. There hasn't been a lot of touchdowns scored against USC so far. So this will be the first test. It's on the road. It's a conference game. You have Josh Henson, who is your offensive coordinator. I'm sure he's brought some of Lincoln Riley's secrets with him. Hey, this is some of the tendencies. This is what they like to do. Let's try and limit this and see what we can do by the time the end of the game rolls around. For me, again, if as long as USC can cut down on those penalties, they were called for, I think, 3 hands to the face against Georgia Southern. One of those extended the drive that allowed Georgia Southern to score on the very next play. So it was actually 2 bad plays. It was it was an offsides, on 3rd and 6. So they went to 3rd and 1. On the very next play, I think USC was anticipating a run, and Georgia Southern hit them deep on a cross pattern that ended up for a touchdown. So you can't make one mistake and then double it up with a second mistake on the very next play. As long as USC can limit those mistakes on the road, I think they'll be fine. Because personnel-wise, I think if we're being honest with each other, USC has the better roster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Purdue brought in 50 new guys. I'm sure by now they know each other's names, but there's still that learning curve, learning how to win with each other. And this will be USC's toughest game. And I would say, conversely, this is going to be Purdue's toughest game to date.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a big one at that. I have been vocal. I know that USC brings the better roster, at least, onto the field. I know what Lincoln Riley has been able to do consistently throughout his career. So there's no doubt that USC comes into this one as heavy favors, and for a reason. They do have the better roster right now, but the games are played for a reason. So if Barry Odom is able to execute that game plan with Devin Mockobee, and that's going to be my last question in this segment before we preview some of the Big Ten games this week, I believe that Devin Mockobee is going to be the most pivotal player for Purdue this week against USC. Asserting that run offense is going to be so important to what Purdue is going to do. If they don't assert that run offense, if they're not able to control that time of possession, they're not going to find success. And that's just how it is. But if you're able to stay competitive, if you're able to continuously run the ball, that opens up a big hitter to Armand Branch later in the game once those safeties start to bite on the run. Anything can happen as long as you're staying competitive and staying in this one. So that's going to be the key for Purdue, and Devin Mockobee is going to be the bell cow that needs to make that happen. He's going to be the leading rusher. He deserves to be the leading rusher. Senior running back. He's going to be the most important player on the field for Purdue. For USC, before we head to the Big Ten games on the weekend, who is going to be the most important player for USC in this one to get this win?
So it all starts with the quarterback. If you've mentioned his name a few times, as long as Jaden Maiava plays up to his capability, doesn't make any mistakes, USC limits their turnovers. He has plenty of guys that he can let do the heavy lifting. Yeah, the stats show up that Jaden had 412 yards. I cannot express to you enough how many of those yards came after the catch. And that's just allowing the guys to do their job. Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane, the tight ends, you've got Lake McCree, Walker Lyons, Carson Tabarachi. The running backs, it's not just one you can focus on. It's Waymon Jordan. It's Eli Sanders. Brian Jackson is expected back. He's the power back that you'll see when USC is near the goal line. And then they have a walk-on. His name's King Miller. excuse me, he's played 2 games for USC. In both games, he's had one long touchdown run when he touches the ball. So USC's got some guys that they can, if they want to lean into the running game, they can do that. The key is just have a balanced play call, limit your mistakes, have a big enough lead in the fourth quarter so you don't start experiencing what you experienced last year, where you had a lead in the fourth quarter, you ended up losing in the last minute for those games. Can't have that again.
Solid slate of football in the Big Ten, solid slate of football around the nation. Week 3 this weekend, Saturday. We'll talk about some of the games, see if we agree on any of them. We'll have that here for you next. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or just staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts. And that's where Drip Drop comes in. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. My go-to flavor is that grape flavor. It's always amazing and keeps me refreshed. You can hop on that too right now. Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Today's episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Purdue, Devin Mockobee delivered in a huge way. He had a big game, including that big touchdown in Wildcat that was able to assert himself and the Purdue Boilermakers over SIU. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Just like Mockobee delivered for the Purdue Boilermakers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash streaks. You can save every Saturday when you order through DoorDash streaks. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. We saw a great slate of college football, especially in the Big Ten this past Saturday. A bunch of games. Purdue, USC, they'll enter this big game Saturday 2-0, but there are some big Big Ten games coming up this Saturday. And let's go ahead and go over them, Mark. Let's preview some of these games because both USC and Purdue are going to have to face some of these teams. So always good to see kind of where teams in the Big Ten are at. We saw week 1. A lot of these teams didn't come out playing their best. Some notable ones in that Rutgers, I believe they won on a last-second field goal against Ohio. And then Wisconsin, they were in a crazy game where they couldn't score at all. I think it was like 3-0 at halftime against Miami of Ohio. Week 2, these teams take a bit of a step. They win a little bit more convincingly. Obviously, a lot of these games didn't have too high of stakes against kind of lower tier programs, but it is what it is. You get a win. That's all you can do. But this week, there are some bigger games because Big Ten play starts up in the first one. This isn't a Big Ten game, but this is one that I do want to get your opinion on because, Mark, UCLA has looked terrible, and I'm sure that you get a lot of excitement out of that. Nico has not looked good at all. They take on New Mexico. They lose to UNLV on the road this past Saturday. UCLA is looking desperately for the first win of the year. UCLA, they are 15.5-point favorites in that one. Do you think that UCLA loses again when they're big-time favored against New Mexico at home?
If they lose that game, I think it means that Coach Deshaun Foster has lost the team, lost the locker room.
Absolutely.
As bad as UCLA has looked so far, this is a game that they have to win. You cannot lose to New Mexico. Now, if this game was in New Mexico, maybe we're having a different discussion. But right now, yeah, I think Deshaun Foster, he's doing what he can, but UCLA, yeah, it'll be a close game. How's that?
That one feels like
that one covers the spread.
That one feels like a must win for the Bruins in that one, and not for a good reason. And then Oregon Northwestern. Oregon showed their power Saturday against Oklahoma State, winning that one 69-3. And not just against a bum squad. They played against a Power 4 opponent, although not the best, an Oklahoma State squad, and they dominated in that one. They take on Northwestern, who I've been vocal about. I think that team's going to be the worst in the Big Ten. Week 1, Preston Stone throws for 4 interceptions, no touchdowns in that one. Do you agree with me from the sentiment that Oregon's going to come in this one and just dominate?
They should.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't. That whole Oklahoma State fiasco, when your head coach is talking the week leading up to the game, and hey, we don't have the guys. We can't afford to pay for the same type of roster that Oregon has. I'm wondering what those players are thinking when it's time to play, because they sure as hell didn't look like they were ready to play from when the ball was kicked off. It was 14-0 before I blinked twice. So Oregon should handle Northwestern. I mean, Northwestern is who they are right now. If Oregon is that true championship contender, they have to take care of business. They can't look sloppy. They can't use this as a take it for granted game. We can make a mistake here and there and still survive, because that's not what championship teams do. They put their foot on the neck of a team that they're supposed to, and you hear a crack.
This one is the one that I actually think is quite interesting, and not because I think that Wisconsin's going to be able to pull an upset, but just for the many different storylines. We talked about it. Week 1, Wisconsin didn't look good at all, and you could say the same for Alabama. Week 1 against Florida State, they got dominated in Tallahassee. Kalen DeBoer, we got people saying what they're going to do when they win the lottery from Alabama. They're going to buy out Kalen DeBoer. Just Alabama fans do not like that man right now. And I honestly don't blame them at all. But Wisconsin, they take on Alabama. Alabama, similar spread to the Purdue USC game, about a 3-touchdown favorite. Do you think that we see anything interesting in this one? What do you think Wisconsin does when they go into Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, I think Alabama wins the game. I'm sure Wisconsin will be competitive. I think Kalen DeBoer, he not only hears the voices, he feels the breath on the back of his neck. I mean, that's how big of a shadow is leaning, cast over him right now. I think Alabama wins this game. It's in Tuscaloosa. They gotta figure it out. Wisconsin, they're not expected to win this game. Alabama loses another one. That would be what, his 6th loss in the last 10 games against FBS teams.
Yeah,
that doesn't get it done in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so that'll be one to keep your eyes out. We talked about it all episode long. Purdue versus USC. That one is going to be a big game. Big for Purdue, big for USC, for Lincoln Riley. Both trying to get the first conference win on the year and not lose that first conference game. What do you think are going to be the storylines going into that one Saturday?
So USC has to maintain. They have to stay balanced on offense. Continue to do what they've been doing. Don't Lincoln Riley, we talked about players having to be disciplined. Lincoln Riley has to do the same thing. When it comes to play calling and you're on the road, be disciplined with your play calling. If the run game's working and you have a lead, make the clock your friend. It's great when you're putting up points like you're scoring on a pinball machine. That's fantastic. It's fun for the fans to watch. But you have to play complementary football. So your offense has to help out your defense. Defense has to help out your offense. Just continue to do what you're doing. And I think on the road, no turnovers, limit your turnovers to 1 or none, clean up the penalty play, and USC should finally get that win on the road outside of Los Angeles as a member of the big conference.
Purdue has a huge hill to climb in that one, 21-point underdogs. They're going to be in a tough battle. They need to stay competitive with USC. Don't let USC get a huge lead and keep that offense off of the field. That'll be one that we talk about all week on Locked On Boilermakers. That's going to be a big game Saturday at Ross-Ade, and then let's end it off. California native like yourself. Cal, they take on Minnesota. Minnesota looked very good. I can't lie. Minnesota has surprised me at times. I think with Darius Taylor, that team could have a higher ceiling than a lot of people expect. Minnesota, they're 2.5-point favorites in a matchup, 9:30 p.m. Central, 10:30 Eastern. Minnesota, California. What do you think about that one, Mark?
That's an interesting matchup. Is that one in Berkeley or is that one in
That one's in Berkeley.
I'm going to go with Cal this one. Last year, Cal had a chance to upset Miami at home. Somehow got away from them at the very end. A lot of weird things happened. I think this time Cal does enough to give Minnesota their first loss of the year.
That one will be a good one. I'm very high on Minnesota, so I may have to split with you on this one. I like Minnesota in that one. Well, we're going to go ahead and end off the show. Fun crossover episode, big game Saturday at Ross-Ade, Boilermakers, Trojans. Going to be a fun one. Thank you, Mark, for coming on the show. I hope that we have a lot more to talk about after that game.
We will. Look forward
Absolutely.
to it.
Thank you, sir.